only the latest esteemed guest on our Flex Forward series, Michael. Over this last year, we've been trying to keep in tune with heads of real estate and just ask them what are they seeing and how's it going. Companies like Lego and Xerox and Uber and Dropbox and ADP and just all these various global players. So I think I'm thrilled to have you as the top of the stack there, representing Nutanix's real estate and workplace. But also, you were reminding me before we got started, formerly with Medallia, another like exciting growth technology company where we did some business at Knotel as well. So thank you and welcome to talk to us about 2021 and what's going on in workplaces. I know we have a very interested audience.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Happy to be here for sure.
Maybe a good place to start. I mean, Nutanix is, I guess, for those in the know, a powerful, fast-growing company at the cutting edge, but perhaps something that average head of real estate somewhere out there learning about things may not have run across before. Maybe you can give us a little bit of an intro on Nutanix so we know what we're dealing with in terms of your workplace culture as well.
Sure. About 3 years ago, we used to be a hardware company. We have converted to a completely SaaS company now. And so what Nutanix does is mainly we're in the data center sector. And in data centers, you have multiple pieces of hardware from different manufacturers. And if you can imagine an IT person, all those pieces of hardware have their own platforms, right? The software that they have to use to get into those pieces of hardware. So what we did is we wanted to make their life easier. So we created a platform that overlays all of those pieces of hardware's platforms themselves. And you end up with just one tool. So the IT person actually could just have one platform that they can use to connect to all different pieces of hardware and run and operate the data center in a much more efficient way. So it's a very cool tool.
And that's a pretty big transformation to have made as a public company. And I guess somewhere in that story is when you joined. Maybe we can learn a little bit about you, Michael, and your story on the way.
Sure. I started off out of school. I grew up in Chicago, and I started with Abbott Laboratories at their headquarters north of Chicago, right out of school. And then with Abbott, I ended up moving out to California. So I ended up coming out here helping build a manufacturing plant, and then they asked me to stay and help run it. So that's how I ended up in California. But that was back in the late 90s during the sort of tech boom. And I said, what am I doing in a healthcare company with the tech companies all around me going crazy, right? So I jumped ship and I went over to NetApp, was there for about 12 years. And then from there, I jumped to a number of companies. I went to McAfee, Brocade, Aruba Networks, Medallia, and now at Nutanix.
Wow, so like a pretty wide diversity, I guess, of real estate problems that you've addressed, right? I guess, you were building factories to workplaces to maybe even touching on data centers.
I did.
So pretty big range, right?
Yeah, at NetApp, I would say we were proud to be the first Energy Star rated data center. And that was built out in Research Triangle Park out in Durham. So that was actually really cool. And we built a very unique data center in our Sunnyvale headquarters as well too. So NetApp was really cool experience. I grew a lot there, learned a lot there. And that's where I really got a great foundation for the position I'm in today.
Okay, so we have a little context on where you're coming from, and I guess that helps us. It'll help us process your views on what to expect in workplace and in office for this year. I mean, the year that just finished was, I think, the craziest year I've ever seen on, I don't know, pretty much every measure you could make. But for a head of real estate, I think this was, I mean, was there anyone else around the executive leadership that had a more insane and volatile period from March through the end of the year? It's hard to say, hard to believe.
I don't want to say they didn't, but our world definitely got flipped 180 degrees, right? So you had offices that you were running, projects that you were building out, people coming in every day, and then all of a sudden a light switch hit, and everyone's working from home. You're closing down offices. You're looking at how to cut expenses. You're reevaluating your real estate portfolio and your planning going ahead, and that's continuing still now to this day, right? So how are we gonna, and then how are we gonna re-enter, right? How are we gonna come back into the office? What does that look like now?
Well, and you had a bunch of head fakes too, right? I mean, we could be having this conversation 3 months ago or 6 months ago, and you probably would have said about the exact same stuff. You're planning return to work and everything's going up. And so I wonder, like, where do you sit right now? So you've got a bunch of offices, many dozens around the world, dozens of countries. Are they all shut? Are they all kind of a little bit open, optional? What kind of utilization are you seeing? And what are some of the trends, at least if you see the situation now? Like, what is going on?
So Asia Pac's opening up. So we've got about 10 offices there that are opened up. Obviously, EMEA and the Americas are still having challenges with managing cases. And so in Asia Pac, we're also traveling more. We're trying to operate the offices, obviously still in a very safe manner. It's a little more prescriptive still to manage who's coming in when. But eventually I'm figuring that I'm going to be hearing more pressure to start trying to get offices somewhere back to normal in the next couple of months in Asia Pac, just because the communities around there are starting to operate a little bit more normal. They're still keeping social distance, masks. Those are still priorities, even though the case counts are still really low. For everywhere else, we're just literally tracking. We're tracking cases. We're looking at all different countries all the time, literally on a weekly basis, to see how they're managing. And if things get better in certain areas, we have the ability to go open up offices. So it's a very thoughtful way that we're approaching it right now.
So let me ask you, just to double click on Asia, because we operate in India and Japan, which are very different in terms of the virus and in terms of practices at the moment. But do I read you correctly as in some of your Asian cities, maybe you guys have been a little bit more cautious than other companies that are around you? Your folks are like, hey, why are we still closed? You guys you're kind of lagging. Yeah, we should be careful, but a lot of people are open right now. We'd like to be open.
Yeah, we do. I do get that. Yeah, I tell my team, I go, I'm definitely not running for mayor anytime soon in my company, because there's a lot of people that probably don't agree with sort of the direction that I have to go put out there. And we have what we call a return to office process, or request to open process. And there's a very specific metric that needs to be met on a case count per population in order to actually open up. And maybe that's a little bit more, I would say, constrictive than a number of companies, but we wanted to have something that we could actually put a line in the sand on, stand on a hold with that. So there's no gray areas, right? If it's gray, people are going to try to push, and that's just nature. And so we needed to have a foundation. We stick with that very, very tightly. And it's helped out a lot. It actually makes people really understand why we're coming back. It makes them understand that we're really trying to create a safe environment for when they come back. Even if the local area is not even asking to require masks outside the office, we're still saying in the office, you got to wear a mask. So even though outside it might be easier and we might have a little bit more tightening inside, for me, it's the safety of the people. That's priority number one.
Mm-hmm. And does that mean that you are shut? Like zero door is locked in most of your locations from California to Berlin?
Yeah, we have a couple essential workers in some office locations, and we have a process for them coming on in. We have, security staff there. In some locations, we still have shipping and receiving. UPS and FedEx, they'll still drop boxes off. They do not care, right? So we still have to manage that. But for the most part, when an office is shut, it's shut. We don't let people in.
So 2020 did end officially on December 31st, but it sounds like we're still kind of living in 2020 at this moment, right? But we are starting to look forward. And I'm curious to get your take. So we're going to be mostly work from home, partly work from home for another number of months. And a big part of what you do is caring about just getting people to work together, be effective, all that. And you can't do a big offsite retreat and approve that on your travel policy. You can't have everyone at the all hands. You can't, there's a bunch of things you can't do. So are there some things that are high on your list that you're thinking, all right, you know what? This is the year, let's do this, let's roll this out, let's create some empowerment and some connectedness. And here's some stuff that I really like, I want to share with some other folks right now.
Well, we're going to start our sort of plan to figure out what kind of company we want to be coming out of this. So as a company, we had stated that we wouldn't be looking to return to the office till September 1st. If there's an opportunity to pull that date in, we may go pull that date in. But for the most part, the majority of our offices, we're looking at September 1st. So between now and then, what do we need to do to be fully prepared, have the engine running 100%, foot's on the gas. So when things are open, our plans in place. We're already executing on the way we're going to work going forward. And we're trying to make our employees as effective and productive as possible. So right now, we're going to start off literally for the next month or so, really diving in and researching with our senior leaders sort of what we want to become as a future company and the way we're going to go work. And then from there, putting tools, policies, processes in place. Because with this hybrid way of working, right now we have everybody working from home. So there's sort of this one way that everybody's really sort of working. When we go back and we go to this more hybrid model, I know we're going to have managers that really don't understand that 5 people are in the office all the time and 5 people are at home all the time. How do you manage that? How do you manage the people who are at home that may feel disconnected, may feel like they're not getting seen, right? If I'm not getting seen, am I not getting that promotion that I may get or may miss out on? So, how do you manage to those? And so we're partnering with IT, we're partnering with HR, and we're collectively going to become this team, sort of figures out all this stuff collectively together and works with our executives in partnership to make sure we check in with them, see if everything's going the way they want it. So when we do open things back up, we're ready to go. And so we want to make sure that we get that right, at least initially. I do think it's going to change. Even when we do open up, I think there's going to be changes for the next 6 to 9 months, even after that. People who said they're going to go work from home all the time, after an office is open for 3 months, they may say, I might want to come back in the office a couple of days a week now. They may not want to work full time at home, right? Because I do miss the interaction, right? This fear of missing out. So we got to be agile, we got to be flexible, and that's sort of what we want to make sure we create and develop. And tools are going to be a big part of that.
I agree. It's one of the really hard parts of this is you can't ask people what they want because they don't know. Like, how the heck do they know? There's just no way they're going to know who they are in the future, when on the other side of all this. Makes it really hard. And, it sounds like a really thoughtful process because you are considering a lot of the themes that I've been hearing other heads of real estate talk about. Does that mean then that you're not yet pulling the trigger on some of the core nuts and bolts stuff that is like the traditional province of a real estate head, portfolio size, dispersion, renewals? Are you like, wait and see, let's take another quarter because we got a lot of strategy thinking to do, we got to see what's happening with the virus before we make big cuts? Or are you out there making big changes, cutting, expanding, whatever?
Well, we've closed a number of offices already, just because they were serviced offices. They were small. There was a small population, and we said, well, why would we even have it right now? If we need something in 9 months, we'll go get something in 9 months. So let's just go close after now. And then we've shrunk a number of offices as well. But right now, our view is our real estate portfolio is going to stay flat. We think it's going to stay flat for a couple of years. We think we really need to have tools in place that can really maximize the efficiency of our office space, right? So if you think about, let's say 50% of your population is going to be in this sort of hybrid way of working between home and the office, we're going to have, the ability to book a desk or book a space, which we didn't have in the past. Everybody had dedicated seats. So with that, we feel we're actually going to be able to maximize and really utilize our space a lot more efficiently. And the other thing with that is we're going to be putting the tools we're going to put in place are not just like a booking a desk. It's really very thoughtful. It's making sure that you can book a certain area only for certain people. We're going to give different groups actually priority to book out further. So like our engineers, we're probably going to give them a little more priority. So they may be able to book desks and spaces out 2 months in advance versus everyone else might only get a month in advance, right? We're also going to put the ability that, like, let's say if I book a seat on a day, my team may want to know when I'm coming in the office. So if I book something, there's going to be an automatic way that my team can actually say, yes, I want to know when Michael Phelps books a seat. So they would get a notice and they say, hey, Michael booked a seat on the 3rd floor of this building. Do you want to book a seat by him, right? So being thoughtful about that. So when people do come back in, it's as functional and useful for them as possible, right? Teams are staying together. People are meeting the people that they need to go meet when they come into the office.
Have you been looking at outside vendors and tools for this stuff, or is some of this homegrown? I've heard both answers from tech companies.
I've heard both. I've heard both too. We actually are literally going to be pulling the trigger on a tool. So we decided on a tool, and we're literally the next week or two. We're pulling the trigger. We're going to start working on it. So it's nothing homegrown.
Yeah, it's interesting that various folks have considered the homegrown approach as well. I guess you need something to do when everyone's working from home to excite maybe your tech team. What about footprint type stuff? So if you're staying flat at a company that's as fast growing as Nutanix, like that means you must have a lot of headcount absorption plans, but you keep a flat footprint. Does that mean the square foot stays the same, but you might disperse it differently, hub and spoke, geographies? Any feelings about, what this year holds on that?
Yeah, so obviously with everyone working from home, I think most companies have figured out that you can go hire talent really anywhere, and people can really work anywhere. What a company's decision is to that knowledge now is going to be up to them if they want to embrace that or not, right? So for me, I don't think our footprint at major locations around the world will go away at all. And for new locations, it's all going to be dependent on our talent plan going forward, right? So are we going to move forward and agree that we're going to go with this view that we can go hire talent anywhere we want, right? And tell all managers, go get your talent and you can get it wherever you want, right? It doesn't have to be in San Jose. You can go, if they're even in Sacramento, just go get them. We may not have an office out there, but we'll figure out a solution for them. We haven't collectively made that decision completely. I think naturally we have been hiring people more remotely now, but it's sort of a thought that we need to go through, or a process we need to go through and figure out, is this what we want to go do? As a result, can we end up with more offices in various places around the world? Absolutely. So I'm sort of telling my team we need to be agile, we need to be flexible, we need to be able to adapt, right? So whatever way we're going to go, we may go down a direction, and in 6 months we may pivot. So we got to be ready to pivot, right? So we got to agile is really sort of a key word I use a lot with my team.
Yeah, we used to use that in the tagline for Knotel. I mean, real estate is usually not the area of greatest flexibility in a company's toolkit. But this year we really got tested into turning it into like a really elastic resource. Now suddenly everything's possible, right? Hire wherever you want, change the schedule, day and night. I have been hearing themes like that from other leaders, but similar to the way you're thinking about it, I haven't yet seen companies make big commitments. So hub and spoke's an interesting idea. Large portions that are remote populations, yes, very interesting. And a lot of these folks are letting them sort of roll, but I haven't yet seen, apart from the 1 or 2 announcements from the most kind of extreme companies, I haven't seen a company say, okay, from now on, all roles are anywhere and all managers and reviews and all that's going to change, because there's a lot of unanswered questions in how that evolves. You know, you had mentioned mentorship and advancement. How's that going to work when you've only ever been remote with all your colleagues? Will it work as well, or will someone in the office have an edge on you and then you're falling behind? There's many puzzles, I think, that we haven't yet had to confront.
I think, you know, and when you do that, how do you make sure your culture stays intact, right? I think that's for us, that's a big question, right? And we've been talking about that. Like, if we go more in that direction, where we have a lot more disbursement of people around the world, how do we make sure that we're all still embracing that culture, that people feel like they're really part of our company? How do we make sure that they feel connected with everybody? So that's something we have to think through, right? If we're going to go that direction, what are we going to go put in place to make sure that this happens?
Yeah, I mean, in making these considerations that are on your plate, it must be important to stay connected with, you know, the staff, the front line, all the rings of employees all around. And I'm curious how you're doing that at a time when you're not bumping into people in the hallway, right? Because I have seen in our own company, and I've heard this feedback from others, that like digital means you are easily connected to everyone, but really only connected to the people that you have those like planned meetings with. And so you've got an intense connectivity to a certain group, but now your network's a lot weaker throughout the breadth of the company. And so does that mean you're stuck with, you know, really structured interviews and survey forms, but you don't get some of that kind of more nuanced feedback that you used to get? You fly to Tokyo, walk around the office, and you're like, okay, I get it now. You know, and talk to me about how you're getting information, you know?
It is a challenge. I'll be honest with you. It's tougher. I used to travel a fair amount and go into those offices, and it was important when I would go to do face-to-face meetings with all the senior leaders in the office, because I'm a personal person. I like to have that face-to-face. To do that over Zoom, it's not as easy to go do in a sense of, you know, I want to talk to this person, I want to talk to that person, I want to talk to that person. If I'm in an office, I could generally walk around, and in half a day, I could just bump into one of their, you know, one of the meeting rooms, meet with somebody. I can bump with somebody in the break room, right, and talk to them for a little bit. And so now you actually have to be thoughtful. Like, you know, you have to plan it, you have to schedule it, right? And, you know, people, you know, I'm hearing, you know, with all this, people are actually working longer hours at home, right? They're productive, but they're also, I think, getting, you know, even burned out, right? Because you're so connected, I think people are feeling like they almost have to be somewhat online a little bit more than they used to, where, at least for my team, right? If you were in the office and you drove and you went home, we wouldn't necessarily try to really reaching out to you, right? But
yeah, right. I mean, I get the Zoom
home,
invite at like 9 p.m. Hey, do you have 20 minutes? I'm talking to, like, that never would have happened, like a face-to-face.
Yeah. So it's
but I think you're pointing out something that certainly all of us in this conversation have had a chance to see, including our audience, and certainly it's in the press, right? But probably in the media, they don't have as much control over it as you do directly for your thousands of employees. And I wonder what interventions your HR colleagues and you have thought about, you know, because mine come to me and they say, hey, let's like really try to say this and do that and take a downtime day and whatever. But I don't know if we're doing all the best stuff. I mean, I wonder how you guys are dealing with it.
Our fiscal year starts in August. And so, you know, during sort of the middle of the summer, we had budget sort of planning for this fiscal year, right? And so we had thought that by now, right, more offices would be open, we would have more operational costs, and that's obviously not the case. So what we did is we took the money that I had in my budget for like operating facilities, and we actually reallocated that to the company, back to the company, for team building. So we felt it was really important to invest in team building. So probably a couple months ago, we made an announcement, you know, to everyone in the company. We said, hey, your business unit leader is going to get a lump sum of money and you guys get to use it how you want over the next couple quarters. But it's directed for team building. As a matter of fact, we made sure in our expense reporting tool that we actually had team building in there. So when you did submit for it, right, we could track it. And we're really trying to make sure that people aren't using the money for other things, right? Don't just go and, give your team, some gift cards, right, to go have lunch, on their own somewhere. That's not the intent. The intent is bring people together, right? And if you want to have a socially distanced lunch, fantastic. That's great. If you don't want to talk about work, fantastic. That's great. But get together, right? It's the community, right? So that's the important thing. So we actually invested in that. We thought that's really important to go do.
So, we've been talking about some of the tools at your disposal, and I would be remiss if I didn't at least ask you about how you found yourself as a customer of a flex provider like us, not just at Nutanix, but even before when you were at Medallia. I mean, the role of a flexible workplace platform in times like these, or in other times a few years ago, I'm curious, why have you been a Knotel customer, and why should somebody else think about it?
So I really enjoy working with you guys. Right in the beginning of the year, we were finishing up a project in Berlin with you guys. We took 3 floors out there, and this is a good example of Berlin. We have our engineering design team out there. They're really particular about design. Like, they really want to know, like, how the office is going to look and feel and operate, right? And they really wanted to be a part of that. So a couple of things. So at Knotel, I really like that you have sort of a menu of options, right? Here's what you get, right? If you have this budget, and you can get this with your budget. If you have more budget, you can get more things, right? And I really like that because to me, it's clear. Like, I know what I'm getting, expectations are set, which is actually really nice. And if I want to add in something, I can go add something in. And we did that in Berlin, right? We wanted some more details. We wanted some more choices, right? To be able to go do that. And we paid for that. But in the end, it was great. We ended up being able to get a space for a team that's really picky about their space to really appreciate what they got. And they were actually a part of the entire design. Your design team listened to us. They took our considerations in. They went and found different products for us. It wasn't like, here's what you get and that's it, right? Or, there was, I think, greater options for us. And I really liked that. It was I would call it very thoughtful. And to me, it was like a true partnership, right? We really worked together. Yeah. Well, I mean, in the back of my head, the way I look at it is, we ended up with an office that if I would have done it on a traditional way of building it out, really wouldn't have been much difference at all, right? And I didn't have to go up front the capital. I didn't have to go run the whole project to go build it all out, right? So to me, I'm like, this sort of was a win-win for me there. And it was great. So I do like, that you guys take a whole floor for the most part.
Right, as opposed to the sharing kind of thing. Right.
Yeah, it works really well for me. And in Sao Paulo, we did the same thing, right? We took a whole floor with you guys. And I did it when I was with Medallia too, right? I was talking to you earlier about, it was right at Times Square. They had a view of the ball, and I was like, this is going to be an awesome, space. So so super excited. I'm really happy to be working with you guys.
Well, I am. I'm flattered. I'm thrilled that you had so many nice things to say. I was just curious, to get you to talk flex a little bit, and maybe to take it further in the nuts and bolts kind of stuff is like. So then, how do you measure if an office investment you've made is working for you? Like, all right, fine, you like this, it was convenient, everyone got what they wanted, a bunch of finicky engineers or thumbs up. Does that mean you are thinking about sites and the way you make these selections in terms of like the workplace happiness of the staff? How do you think about it? Like, what's the right way to think about return on these kinds of investments and the KPIs for them?
For me, customers key. It's making the employees who are in the office happy and excited to come into the workplace. So any new project that we have, I start off actually already partnering with the local team. So they become part of the design process. so they have input on it. We also make sure that we blend sort of local culture and the company culture within the office as well too. So, if you go into the Tokyo office, it definitely feels like a Tokyo office. And you can tell that the employees have had some influence on the design of the office. And that gives them a sense of ownership and pride too when they're in their office. And they walk around and be like, hey, as a team, we made these decisions, right, to do this and to do that. We weren't told that we had to, walk into an office and this was what you were going to go get. So first, get them to be a part of that sort of initial partnership to build out and design the space. And then when they're in the space, it's really important to know the people that are there, right? So understand what they like to do, what they enjoy doing. We opened up a new office in Singapore probably a year ago, and there's a lot of runners. My team discovered in the office. So one of the and two people on my team run as well. So they were like, let's just put an office, group together and let's go run, right? And so it ended up working out really well. People are doing something socially outside the office. And we do that a lot. We actually have a group like that does mountain biking in Sydney. So, it's finding out what the employees really enjoy, what they like, and then trying to cater to that, right? It's like, I use the word hospitality a lot to my team, right? It's in the hotel kind of industry, but the reality is we got to sort of be that way too in our offices.
Yeah. So how do you get these insights from folks? Is there a programmatic way? I mean, I guess being really attuned to the leadership and how some of that office is working is a way for you to get a bunch of anecdotal, like, okay, I think this is a good insight and people sounded thrilled by this. That's cool. Are you measuring and finding insights in programmatic ways as well? Because it's famously hard, right? I mean, the only people that fill out the survey are the most kind of mad about something, and then like the silent majority is not really helping you make the decision. I mean, I just wonder if you've been able to crack the code. You've probably made hundreds of office decisions for your companies over the last couple of decades.
Yeah, to your point about surveys, yeah, we do surveys every once in a while, and it's good feedback. It's good, but actually, I appreciate sort of it's a culture thing that we're very open and honest and a very free to speak your mind kind of a company, especially in our world. We actually asked for that. We encourage people to go do that. And we have like a Slack channel like for every single office, right? And then there's even there's general ones for the entire company. We actually get a lot of feedback just from communicating in those ways. People, walking up, no one's walking up to us now, but we get, when we were in the office, right? People walking on up, people sending Slacks, people sending emails, sort of the freedom of people being able to say something and not have like backlash. That's actually, we encourage that, right? And it's actually really, the backlash part is really strongly protected. It's like, guys, we need everyone to feel like they can say their piece. And I really appreciate that. You may hear things you may you wish that are pretty challenging, right, to hear, but that's good. We like, hey, this is a learning opportunity from us. We made a mistake, right? Let's go correct it, figure it out, and let's move forward with it, right? So you don't learn unless you make mistakes.
Totally. Wow. So, I mean, probably some of the secrets that have made Nutanix a successful business around product and technology are using them at the heart of that workplace culture and how people create the environment around them. Let's see. So maybe I'll give you like a flash round of a few sort of pretty direct questions as we get to the end of our time together here. It's some of the standard ones that you already gave me a hint, like footprint up or down, you're saying flat. Yeah.
Yep.
Big bets on central business district versus suburb, sort of changing your footing, you're saying not yet.
No.
The end of open office and the change of the workplace design, have we seen it, or are you still staying the course in terms of basic designs?
We're walking in with our current design because I feel that we really don't understand fully what this new way of working is going to come out to be. We sort of have to go jump in it, live in it for a while, see what we think works, and then go make adjustments. I get nervous about making an assumption too early, making big changes, and then all of a sudden 6 months later you're like, wow, we really missed the boat on that one. That's not the way our people really want to work and sort of be productive within the space.
Return to work date at the moment, you guys are thinking September for almost the entire globe except Asia, but you could be persuaded that it happens a bit earlier. Is your current posture? Yeah.
You could.
Yeah. You've opened the gates on remote hiring for the last number of months, and that seems like it'll continue for a while. But you'll take an assessment in the next 6 months on like, okay, did this just fundamentally change everything, or did we just happen to hire 5% of the staff in other places?
Yeah, we definitely want to look into it as a company to make sure that that's the direction we want to go before sort of making that sort of an option for all managers to go do. We still are hiring a good amount of people. So right now they're just hiring sort of anywhere. But do we want to close the gates on it? Do we want to sort of manage that, put some guardrails in place? We need to figure that out.
Okay, and then maybe my last one is about geographic weighting. We even had a question from the audience about it. And geographic weighting, you could take it a lot of ways. So the flight from the Bay Area, kind of much ballyhooed, relocating headquarters, or just, hey, it's been a very interesting year and the world changed a lot. Like, is your anticipated weighting of global headcount changed over the consequences that we just pursued?
No, I don't think it really has. I think we're gonna, key locations that we have for like engineers, I don't see us adding any other ones. We might, but the ones we already have, I think those are foundationally great locations to continue sort of hiring at. And that's the plan right now.
Well, I have to thank you, Michael Phelps, for being with us. I'm sure everyone learned as much as I did from listening to how you're thinking about this year ahead. I'm really appreciative for sharing a little bit of your experience from Nutanix and from Medallion, and even when you made medicine factories, I guess, for Abbott.
Yeah, it was. I would say the chemical labs, biological labs are probably the coolest one, just because of managing pressurization into the level that there's biological levels in terms of design, BL 1, 2, 3, and 4. And when you're doing like a BL 4, which could hold like Ebola, right? The design and functionality of that is pretty intense. You can't really miss getting that wrong.
Wow. Well, I guess maybe as we continue our fight against the virus, your phone may ring because there's relatively few people that can scale up capacity and build factories, I guess, like that. But I'll thank you again. And thanks to everybody who joined to hear all this wisdom. We're going to post this conversation on that Flex Forward webinar series, and you'll be able to share it with colleagues. I'll see all of you the next time. Yeah.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye.